Ever wondered why the rich just keep getting richer even when everything else falls apart? Why do some families hold on to their wealth for hundreds of years, while others lose everything within a generation? Today, we're exposing the hidden playbook the ultra-wealthy have been using for centuries, and why you've probably never been taught any of this, so don't blink. Because every second of this video could change your financial future forever. And real quick, if you want to break free from the cycle of working for money and start making your money work for you, like the rich do, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump straight in. Let me start with a question. Why is it that 70% of wealthy families lose their fortune by the second generation, and 90% by the third? That's right, most family empires collapse within just a few decades. But there's a small percentage, less than 10%, that not only preserve their wealth, but grow it exponentially over time. What's their secret? It's not just owning real estate. It's not just investing in stocks. It's a mindset, a system, and, more importantly, a set of unbreakable rules they live by now. Before we dive into those secrets, let me tell you a quick story. In the early 1900s, the Vanderbilt family was one of the richest families in America. Cornelius Vanderbilt, the family patriarch, built a shipping and railroad empire worth over $200 billion in today's dollars, but just a few generations later, the money was gone. At a family reunion in 1973, not a single Vanderbilt was a millionaire. So what happened? How do you go from being one of the richest families in the world, to losing everything? And why do families like the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and others seem to have cracked the code? Here's where it gets interesting, because the answer lies in the things you don't see, the things they never show on social media. Let's start with rule number 1 of generational wealth. Ownership over income. The rich don't chase paychecks, chase control. Imagine this. A regular person gets a raise and buys a new car. A wealthy person gets a dividend check from a business they own and uses it to buy another income-producing asset. That means while one person is locked into a cycle of working harder for money, the other is multiplying their wealth without lifting a finger. But it goes even deeper. Let me introduce you to something called a family office. This isn't just a bank account or a team of advisors. It's an entire private organization designed to manage and grow a family's fortune across generations. Imagine having a team of accountants, lawyers, investment experts, and strategists all working full-time not for a company, but for your family alone. This is how the Rockefellers do it. Their family office has existed for over 100 years. They use it to manage trusts, buy private equity deals, acquire real estate, and make long-term bets the average person never even hears about. Which brings us to rule number 2. Wealth is protected through infrastructure. Think about this. Most people get rich and stop there. The truly wealthy, they build a fortress around their wealth. Trust funds, foundations, LLCs, insurance, wrappers, offshore entities. Each layer isn't just protection, it's power. But here's the part that will really shock you. Some wealthy families don't even pass on cash to their children. Yes, you heard that right. Instead, they pass on control over assets through structured trusts, ensuring that each generation benefits from the family wealth but can't destroy it. This leads us to rule number 3. Don't give them fish. Teach them how to manage the pond. One of the biggest reasons wealth disappears is because future generations aren't prepared to handle it. But wealthy families know this, so they treat financial education like a religion. Children are taught from a young age how money works, how investments grow, how risk is managed, and most importantly, how to delay gratification. Imagine a teenager learning about tax optimization before even buying their first car. That's not a dream. That's real life for the 1%. And it's one of the biggest reasons they continue to win. Now you might be thinking, okay, but isn't it all about having money to begin with? Not entirely, because here's the next twist. Many of these families weren't always rich. They became rich through deliberate strategy and long-term thinking. Let me give you an example. In the 1920s, a man named John Templeton started investing during the Great Depression. He didn't come from wealth, but by sticking to value investing and reinvesting profits, he built a fortune that outlasted him by decades, now benefits his descendants through a charitable foundation that continues to grow. See, the game isn't about making quick money. It's about building something that outlives you, and that leads us to rule number 4. Think in 100-year cycles. Most people think about next month. Some think about next year. The wealthy, they think in terms of generations. They ask, will this investment still matter in 50 years? Will this property generate income for my great-grandchildren? Will this company survive beyond me? And that long-term mindset leads to surprisingly different choices. Instead of gambling on high-risk startups, they'll quietly buy up farmland, water rights, infrastructure assets, things with permanent value that the world can't live without. Which brings us to a jaw-dropping revelation. Did you know some of the wealthiest families in the world own entire towns? That's right. They buy up massive pieces of land not to flip, but to control. They lease it. They build on it. They pass it down. It's not just about money. It's about legacy. Now here's something even crazier. Wealthy families often don't trust banks. Instead, they create their own. Through private banking systems and life insurance-backed policies like infinite banking, they lend money to themselves and earn interest on their own capital. It's like being your own bank, and it's a level of financial freedom the average person doesn't even know exists. Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds amazing, but I'm not rich. How does this help me? That's the golden question and the reason you're still watching. Because here's the truth. You don't have to be born rich to build like the rich. It starts with shifting your mindset from income to ownership, from spending to investing, from thinking in months to thinking in generations, and you can start small. Buy assets, not liabilities. Invest in education, not just college, but financial intelligence. Create structures to protect your future wealth trusts, wills, LLCs. Even if the numbers are small for now, remember, the Rockefellers weren't born with a family office. They built it, so can you. If you got value from this video, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway, and if you're serious about building generational wealth, check out this next video on how to legally pay zero taxes like the ultra-wealthy. That one will blow your mind. And don't forget, your legacy doesn't start when you're gone. It starts with the decisions you make today. Now go build something that lasts forever. But it doesn't stop there, because the next move the ultra-wealthy make to preserve their fortune is almost invisible to the public eye. Let's talk about family foundations now. When most people hear foundation, they think charity, donations, helping the community. And sure, that's part of it. But for wealthy families, a private foundation is much more than just philanthropy. It's a tax strategy, a power tool, and a legacy engine, all wrapped in one. Here's how it works. Let's say you donate $10 million to a private foundation. You get a massive tax deduction, sometimes up to 30% of your income. Then you invest that $10 million. The capital grows inside the foundation, tax-free, and guess what? Your family members can run the foundation, draw salaries, and influence the causes it supports for generations. It's one of the most powerful wealth-preserving structures that's perfectly legal, and almost nobody talks about it. Now let's pivot to another surprising asset the wealthy use: art. Yep, paintings, sculptures, rare collectibles. But this isn't just for status or luxury. It's for wealth preservation. Why? Because fine art is portable, appreciates in value, and in many countries, it's incredibly tax efficient. There are billionaires who store millions of dollars in private art vaults hidden in free ports around the world, where art can sit for decades without ever triggering a tax event. Think about that. While the average person parks their savings in a depreciating car or overpriced gadgets, the rich park theirs in a Monet that silently gains value, untouched by inflation or government interference. And this leads us to gold. Timeless, indestructible, immune to digital collapse. Rich families don't keep all their wealth in bank accounts. Diversify into hard assets. Gold, silver, rare metals, land. Assets that don't rely on human promises. Only intrinsic value. And if the system ever fails, these are the assets that hold power. Let me tell you something wild. There are vaults hidden under cities like Zurich and Singapore filled with untouchable reserves owned by families you'll never hear about. They don't need to panic during market crashes. They plan for them, because here's a core belief among the ultra-wealthy. If you can't hold it, you don't own it. Let's go deeper now. Have you heard of dynasty trusts? These are trusts designed to last for centuries, not years, not decades, centuries. The US once had something called the rule against perpetuities, which limited how long a trust could last, but many states have repealed that rule. Now, you can legally create a trust that lasts forever. Imagine this. You set up a dynasty trust today. Fund it with cash, real estate, or stocks, and that trust pays your descendants for hundreds of years. And guess what? It's protected from creditors, divorces, lawsuits, even bad financial decisions your heirs might make. In other words, bulletproof wealth. This is rule number 5. Build wealth so strong it doesn't need perfect heirs. Now let me blow your mind again. A concept called stealth wealth. It's the opposite of flexing. You don't see it, you don't show it, but it's there quietly compounding. The wealthiest families often blend in. They drive regular cars, they live in modest homes. Why? Because the quieter the wealth, the safer it becomes. When no one knows what you own, no one knows what to take. That's how the rich preserve peace, privacy, and power. Now let's zoom out and ask something philosophical. What really makes wealth last? It's not just money, it's culture. Families that pass down wealth for generations don't just pass assets, they pass values. They hold annual family meetings, they write legacy letters, they record interviews with grandparents, they document the story behind the wealth. Because they know, if your children understand where the money came from, they're far less likely to squander it. That's rule number 6. Pass down the why, not just the what. And this brings us to education, but not the kind you're thinking of. Most schools teach you how to be a good employee. The wealthy teach their kids how to be owners. They introduce them to entrepreneurship early. They give them books on money, investing, psychology. They bring them to meetings. Let them shadow business leaders. They immerse the next generation in wealth-building environments because they understand something critical. Environment beats intention. You can have the best ideas. But if you're surrounded by people who think small, you'll eventually shrink your dreams to match. The wealthy don't take that risk. They curate their circle, and their kids' circles now. Let's open one final loop, one that almost no one talks about. The emotional intelligence behind wealth. Preservation, because here's the truth. Money makes you more of what you already are. If you're impulsive, it makes you dangerously impulsive. If you're insecure, it makes you obsess over status. If you're unhealed, it amplifies chaos in your family. So the ultra-wealthy do something radical. They invest in family therapy. Yes, family therapists, communication coaches, conflict resolution experts. Why? Because they understand that wealth doesn't disappear because of bad markets, it disappears because of bad relationships, fights over inheritance, siblings who never speak again, entitlement, addiction, ego. All of these things can destroy a family fortune faster than a stock market crash. So the wealthiest families don't just build financial structures, they build emotional resilience. They have conversations most families avoid. They create rules around money, and most importantly, they create unity. That's rule number 7. Your family is the asset. Protect it like one. And if you made it this far, let me reward you with one last insight. There's one final tool that ties all this together. It's called a legacy plan. It's a written blueprint not just for money, but for meaning. It defines how wealth should be used, what the family stands for, what to prioritize when investing, how to stay grounded in generosity, vision, and long-term thinking. Think of it as the North Star, compass that guides future generations long after you're gone. Because wealth without direction, it vanishes. But wealth with purpose, it becomes immortal. So now I want to leave you with this. You don't need $1 billion to start acting like a legacy builder. You don't need a private jet or a skyscraper with your name on it. All you need is a decision. To think bigger, to plan further, to protect what you're building starting today. Because one day, someone will look back at your life and say, that's where it all began. And if this video inspired you even 1%, do yourself a favor. Like this video so the algorithm knows it's worth spreading. Comment below what legacy you want to leave, and don't go yet. In the next video, I'll show you how the world's richest legally avoid taxes using tools anyone can access. Yes, even you. Click that now, because your journey to generational wealth has only just begun.